Hello, this is Mrs. Rivera, and I'm going to explain to you what your activity is going to be today. So, when you get into the plant adaptations classwork, you'll see that number one says you have to watch a video first. So, you're going to click the link, and it's called Plants with Weapons. So, you're going to click that, and it will bring you right to the video that you need to watch. Now, whoops. Let's see.
When I first saw this product, I thought it looked kind of crazy.
There's a little commercial,
Didn't really
so if there's a
understand what the
commercial, when
benefits
this
would be,
gets to one, you could
I'd
just
seen some
skip
before and
it.
after pictures on the.
And here's the video. So you're going to watch that video. It's all about plants and their adaptations. Now, an adaptation is something that plants use to keep themselves safe. So if, for example, a cactus might have these things on them, these prickles or spikes, and there's a reason why they have them. And you're going to find out why in the story that we're going to read, okay? So we're going to talk all about plant adaptations. Now there are also animal adaptations, and certain animals have certain things on their bodies that help them live where they want to live. For example, maybe a squirrel can keep all of the nuts that it eats in its mouth to save for later, so that it doesn't go hungry, and the mouth stretches to fit all of the nuts in there. That's an adaptation. Now plants have adaptations also. So after you watch that video number one, you should be watching video number two, which is this video. That's why you can't see the link. And I'm going to read you a book, and after we read the book, you're going to answer these questions. All right, and I'll explain that at the end of the book. So here's the book, Plant Adaptations. And this is nonfiction. That means it's real. Look at plants. A plant is a living thing. Most plants can make their own food using energy from the sun. Plants make food to help them grow. So one of the adaptations that a plant has is that it makes its own food. So it doesn't need anything to give it food because it makes its own food from the sun. Plants can look very different. How plants look can tell us how they live. Plants that grow in the shade may have large leaves to help them get enough sunlight. So if they're in the shade, they're not getting a lot of sun. So an adaptation that these plants have is that the leaf is really big so that it could take in as much sunlight as it can. Thorns are these things right here, these spiky things that you never want to touch because they'll hurt your fingers. Thorns stop most animals from munching rose bushes. So this is a rose, and most of you have seen these beautiful flowers before. And roses have thorns on them so that animals don't come and eat them. That's an adaptation. Over time, living things change. These adaptations help living things survive, and survive just means to live. So all these adaptations that the plants have help them survive or live wherever they're living, okay? The tallest trees get the most sunlight. So since these trees are so tall, that helps them get the most sunlight. That's an adaptation also. And here's the cactus I was telling you about. Cactus stems have a thick, waxy coating. That's the outside of the plant, okay? The waxy coating slows water loss. So since they have a special coating on the outside of this plant, it actually helps keep the water that they get inside longer, because usually you see these, and it says it right here, cactuses can grow in hot, dry deserts. because usually you see a cactus in a very hot place and where there's not a lot of water. So it's important for these plants to be able to hold on to the water that they get as long as they can. So that's an adaptation. So the waxy coating that's on the outside of the cactus actually helps them so that it keeps the water inside longer. And that's very helpful when living in a desert. Some water plants have large flat leaves. Have you ever seen this before? This is a lily pad or a water lily. And whenever I see one of these, it reminds me of an animal. Can you think of an animal that always hops onto a lily pad? If you thought a frog, you're right. These leaves float on the surface to get more sunlight. So the reason why they float and they don't sink into the water is because they get more sunlight when they're floating on top. So that's an adaptation. Water lilies have adapted to living in water, and that's how they live in water. So they float on the top, so that's how they get their sunlight. In cold places, short plants can avoid chilly winds. So they're saying here that if the plant is short, it won't feel the wind so much, and that's how it survives in the cold. Arctic plants like the bearberry grow close to the ground. So some plants that need to survive in the cold weather have to be close to the ground. That's how they adapt. They stay close to the ground so they don't get too cold. Over 1,500 or 1,500 kinds of plants survive the Arctic short summers and poor soil. So all of these really short plants, that's how they survive. Strange plants, strange places. Plants have adapted to strange places. Some bog plants catch and digest insects to make up for poor soil nutrients. So some plants that are in the bog, I don't know if it'll show us. Let's
Bog.
see. It's a wet, spongy ground. So it's like a ground that's a little bit damp that you wouldn't want to step on because then you'll probably get pretty dirty. The plants that are on in the bog, they catch insects like this one and they eat it. And that's to make up for the poor soil nutrients because a lot of plants get a lot of their nutrients, which are like vitamins that they need to grow and live. They get them from the ground. But since in a bog, it's the nutrients in the ground aren't that good, they actually eat bugs. And the way that they do that, it says it here, that they trap insects in a sweet, sticky gel. So all these things on this plant, they make like a sticky gel and the insects like it. And then they get stuck and trapped and then the plant can eat the insect. It's kind of like a trap. Okay? So that is an adaptation that bog plants have. Pretty cool. Not all plants live on the ground. Some grow on treetops. They get water from rain or the air. Did you know that not all plants live on the ground? Wow, that's interesting. Rainforest trees often have other plants, such as bromeliads, growing on their branches. So some plants grow right on a branch, and they get water from rain or from the air. So that's an adaptation that those kinds of plants have. Plants have different looks and ways of living. Look at plants to learn how they live. Plants grow almost everywhere. Some plants even grow underwater. Wow. And if you've ever seen a tree like this before, you will notice that they stay like this all year long. They don't lose their leaves like these kinds of trees. So that's an adaptation also. Okay, so now if you needed help with any of the definitions or the meanings of any of the words that were bold, remember there's a glossary right here you can look at, okay? This book is actually in getepic.com. You see how I have the title up here. I did create an account for all of you. I don't know, I'm not sure if all of you have signed on to that. So if you need help signing on, please let me know. But if you would like to do the activity by going back into the story yourself, you can go on getepic.com. And the title of this book was, let's go back, Plant Adaptations by Julie K. Lundgren. So you can always look up this book. Looks like this. Okay, that's the cover. And if you would rather go back into my video and watch it, that's fine too. But the questions that I'm asking you are actually the same questions that are from this story right here. I put them in here, okay? So I broke it down a little bit. So this is how you do the activity. So number 1 says, what are some ways plants adapt to where they live? So I made a little chart so it's a little bit easier for you to fill out. I'm only asking for 3 more, okay? 3 more ways. Now, on this side, you want to talk about what the plant is, and some of them don't give you plant names. That's okay. I put an example in here. In the beginning of the book, they said that plants that grow in the shade have large leaves to help get enough sunlight. That was the first thing that we kind of went over. So where it says plant, I just put plants that grow in the shade because they didn't really say the name of the plant, and that's fine. And how it adapts, it has the large leaves to help get enough sunlight. Okay, so I want you to find 3 more plants and how they adapt from the story. Or if you saw something from the video, you could also put that. Okay, number 2. Why do you think a cactus has spines or prickles? And those are these things. Now, they didn't really tell us why they have those, but I'd like you to take a guess. And then you could even check your answer on Google later on why they really do have them. But you can type your answer right here. You see how I could type right there? I'd like you to try and put that in a complete sentence, okay? So if it says, why do you think a cactus has spines or prickles? You might want to say, I think a cactus has spines or prickles because, and then you tell us why you think. All right, what do you think those spines or prickles do to help the cactus live? Okay, and number 3 says, look at some plants in your yard or neighborhood. How have they adapted to living in your area? So maybe you have a rose, like the rose with the thorns. Maybe you have a rose in your yard. Or maybe you have a different kind of flower in your yard. And if you don't know what it's called, you could just describe it. Like I have some tulips in my yard, and some of them grow yellow and some of them grow purple. If I didn't know what kind of flower it was, I would just say it's a beautiful yellow flower that grows in the springtime and it has a long stem. I just describe it, and then I'm going to say how I think it's adapted to living here. So how do I think it's living here without dying or without anything eating it? Okay, and I want you to try your best with that one. Okay, I know that's a hard question. If you have any other questions or you don't understand anything or you don't understand something, please let me know. You could always comment on the assignment. I also am available to meet you on Google Meet, like a video chat, if you ever wanted me to go over anything with you. Okay, so and you could always just let me know. All right, I hope you had a good time reading.